How do you know what to talk about? How do you know how to dial into what feels authentic? Because speaking from your authentic zone, speaking from a very particular place is what's going to make your content feel seamless. It's going to take the guesswork out of it. And it's also going to be what makes you potent. Potency is one of the 5 power codes that we talk about inside of Vocal Honey Group Coaching. So if you want to become more potent, which is really another kind of fun word for magnetic, if you want your magnetism to increase, it's because you're speaking about what lights you up. So I'm going to guide you through my process today on how to figure out, quite simply, what makes you most potent. And once you're locked into that, how to maintain your potency so that you are always speaking fluidly and you're taking the guesswork and the overthinking out of speaking, whether that's on stages or making content. So let's get into it. All of 2023 and 2024, I was beating my head against the wall, trying to consistently figure out what to talk about on social media. All I wanted to do was grow my following. I really wanted to go viral. I was focusing on every single social media trend that was out there, taking all of the free downloads, paying for the masterclasses, and really feeling more overwhelmed than anything. It wasn't until I started speaking in front of groups again. I started the Vocal Honey Tour in 2025, which put me every single month in front of a group of people, whether that was 3 people or 13 or 20 people, or if I was on stages or co-hosting with someone else, that could have been upwards to 300 people, depending on the moment. Speaking in front of people is the number one tip I have for you. When you speak in front of live audience, or even just a few people, what happens is what's known as the relational effect that Kenneth Gergen, who is a great social psychologist, talks about. He says it's only that we know who we are after our voice has been heard by a listener. And if you think about it on a really deep psychological, evolutionary level even, the only reason we human beings have a voice is because we need to use it within our complex societal world. In other words, if it was rare that we would ever run into another human being, we probably wouldn't have adapted, mutated even, to have the use of language. So speaking only happened because it demanded it. The world demanded it. So in other words, your voice, in order to be a voice, requires a listener. If you don't have a listener, do you have a voice? It's kind of like that Buddhist phrase of if a tree falls in the woods, doesn't make a sound if no one's around to hear it. It's the same thing with your voice. If you go to speak and no one's around, is anyone hearing it? Kenneth Gergen would argue no, and I tend to agree with him because I've witnessed firsthand how quickly I've learned to sharpen my message because of speaking in front of other people. You get instant feedback. Did that land? Did it not? You get their questions back, which informs you about where your audience is at. Where do you need to clarify? Where do you need to go deeper? And hearing yourself speak your words reinforces that I love this topic so much. Or, you know what? I'm kind of wishy-washy on this and I think I need to embody it more. And that's the point I want to get to. Whatever you do, speak from what you've lived. Full stop. Period. It's when you try to speak from this, I wish I was a master at this already. I wish I was 10 more years ahead. Don't even speak from those things. Speak from just what you've lived, and you can recite and talk about when you're half asleep, you have a headache. Those are the topics that you've embodied. And when a story, a lesson, a topic, a world is embodied within you, what happens is that you stop overthinking and your voice flows from a very anchored place. And that anchored place is actually the feeling of confidence that everyone is seeking while they're highly visible. It doesn't come from rising into some energy. It comes from relying and relaxing back into something that you know by heart because you've lived it. So my question for you is, where are you forcing topics that you haven't fully lived through yet? Where are you trying to be the expert and really rush your life's experience? Because it shows. It comes across in extra filler words. It comes across in just the tone of voice you have. It comes across in you hurrying, because these are all signs that we're uncomfortable with what we're talking about. And you are uncomfortable when you're talking about the things you haven't fully lived through. We have words for people like that. We call them hypocrites. We call them imposters. Imposter syndrome goes away completely when you start to embody this concept and only speak about what you lived through. So what I want for you to do is grab your notebook, grab your pen, and write the top 5 things. And that should be it. Limit yourself to the things you know by heart, like the things you could write a novel on. The other way to kind of look at this is, what can I shut you up about? What are you absolutely bonkers about that if I get you going on this topic, you can speak forever and you will, quite frankly, annoy people about it? That is probably another good indication of what you've lived through and what you have a lot of experience in. And again, will make you very magnetic or very potent. The other side of potency isn't just that people are drawn to you. It's that you have fun again while you're speaking. You take the overthinking and the burden, the life sentence of figuring out what content to make and how much to make it. And instead it becomes enjoyable and fluid again. Speaking, content creation becomes easy and a relaxed, fluid state of just abundance and overflow. Like, imagine that. Imagine having so much content. Your problem is, can I make another reel? I just made one 5 minutes ago. When you're in front of a live audience, hosting a live workshop, and you start to talk about what you know, you can feel the room shift. Because people have a really good sniffer to detecting bullshit. And we can tell when someone is a novice in something and they're reaching. And you don't want to be that person. It's uncomfortable for you to talk about. You're going to leave that moment feeling like an imposter. But more so, people can tell that you don't know it through and through. So instead of even touching that category, we want people to detect from you a depth, a wisdom. And that's again why speaking about what you've lived through, those 1 to 5 things, those 1 to 3 things, the things that you could talk endlessly about, is how we stay on X marks the spot. It's how we hit our bullseye. It's how we start speaking with that vocal honey effect that makes you ooey and sticky and gooey and delicious and irresistible for everyone that hears you. Another way to figure out what makes you most potent and what topics to talk about is to think about, where have you experienced the most pain in your life? Pain points the way, guys. Pain is absolutely where story creation and a deep, fertile ground of what to talk about gets answered. Go back to your journal. Write down the moments of most pain for you. Was it a divorce? Did someone die in your family? Did you gain a lot of weight? Were you bullied? Were you shamed? Were you assaulted? These things are painful, and not all of them you're ready to talk about, surely. But some of them you've lived and you've embodied, you've healed, you've even forgiven. And the power in that painful story is that it now is medicine for someone else. Your pain story, when you've embodied it and integrated it, isn't pain for someone else. It becomes a roadmap home for someone so that they feel seen and validated. A quick note on telling a pain story: you want to make sure you just get in and get out. It's really important that you don't drop too deep in the actual emotion or pain of the story, because remember, it's not about you. You're not talking to your therapist or your best friend. You're talking to an audience. You're talking to potential clients. We want to keep it clean. So in order to tell a painful story and keep it clean, you want to tell it like you're ordering spaghetti and meatballs. Keep the excitement out of it. Say it matter of fact, but state it fully. Talk about how it sucked. Talk about the pain that you experience. Describe it a little bit, but make sure that your body feels clean and unbothered emotional. You want to stay neutral. That's how we tell a story that actually informs and brings wisdom, not further trauma bonding or triggering your audience. Once you have a list of your painful moments, start talking about them. Start talking about them on social media, start talking about them in email, start talking about them with friends, talk about them on your podcast. The more you own your shame, the more you own your pain, the more you own you. Let's step into shame a little bit, talking about what used to bring you shame, okay? So I was bullied a lot in middle school. I was shamed a lot in high school. I was a very promiscuous young lady. Because of that, I have a lot of shame around attention. But guess what? Now I'm on stages. Now I'm the founder of Vocal Honey. Now I'm helping you guys get more visible. And I've recognized that it is my obligation to acknowledge that I actually love attention on me. But before, the shame, it was ungrounded, unowned. And so it was random, and usually the attention-seeking habits that I had would get me to really risky situations of just drinking a lot, drug use, etc. Now that I've embodied what was shameful before, it is no longer a source of shame for me. And when you can embody that, no one could call you out. Instead, you own yourself fully. Now it becomes something I love to talk about. So that's just another example of whatever is shameful in your past, you've got to own it. You've got to fully accept and love who you are. As soon as you do, again, another realm, another room of what to talk about opens up that makes you super relatable, super charismatic, and powerful and potent. Now, how do we maintain it, right? Once we figure out, okay, I know what my pain stories are. I know what I geek out about and can't stop talking about. I also know what my shame is and I've owned it. The work then becomes staying close to these bodies and topics. Keeping the proximity is really important. And so there is an essence of studying your own craft before you go and speak on it, and taking time every single week to visualize, meditate, and focus on all of these different content pillars, if you will. Because as you grow and as you start to speak about more and more things and get more and more open and more brave, what happens is that how you go to talk about these things change. And when you teach, it's like the teacher becomes the student. When you go to speak on it, the speaker becomes the listener. In other words, there are gems of wisdom inside of every lesson, every pain moment, everything you geek out on, every moment of shame, all the things that you're now here to talk about because you've embodied it and you've healed it, okay, to the point where it doesn't trigger you or trigger anyone. When you go to talk about it, every time you talk about it, you're going to hear something different. You're going to feel something different. And it's going to move you into a little bit of a different flavor when you talk about it. Again, this is why, number one, speaking in front of people will consistently help you learn about the development, the evolution of what you're here to talk about. This way you don't get bored, your audience doesn't get bored. And this is a real creative thought leader tool that I use a lot. It's how I come up with systems. It's how I come up with my framework. And it's how you can do the same, is to study your craft. In other words, talk out loud in your house while no one's around. When you're in your car, talk out loud. Practice as if you were recording or being interviewed by Drew Barrymore or Oprah, which I fantasize about all the time. Practice your sermon. Practice your art. Listen to your art. Feel the words moving out of your body. Did you just go to your head to think a lot about it? Well, then you're probably not talking about something you embodied, because when you speak about what you've embodied, you will stay put in the heart, in the chest, in the lungs, in the gut, in your legs. Those are the physical locations to give you a clue that you're speaking about what you're here to speak about at this chapter in your life. There you go. I hope this deeply helps you understand the mechanisms of why it's important to speak about what you've embodied versus just a random old idea coming into your body, how to stay close to that fire and power through repetition and practicing both solo by yourself but speaking it out loud, and the sources of where to find those hints of what should I be talking about? Like, what have I actually embodied? If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments below. Was this helpful and what questions you have? I'd also love to read what topics do you now know you have embodied and are in fact here to speak on to become potent AF. I'll see you in the next episode.